Happy New Year, everyone. I am so sorry. I'm posting so many videos, but this time of year is just so inspiring to me, so exciting for me as we dream about what comes in 2023. And so I want to share with you, by popular demand, the books I read this year. And, you know, I read some books I didn't like, and I read some books I loved. So I want to show you my Notion template that I've been using. I'm not going to have it available to you at this point, but at least show you how I do what I do. So make sure you guys comment when you get on here. I didn't let anybody know ahead of time I was doing this. Also, would like to see if I can, let's see if I can do this real quick. Show you something I'm excited about. To edit the way this thing looks, and then I'll put it up on the screen. Did you hear me just say under my breath the alphabet? Because I couldn't remember where it was. Amazing, right? Just amazing. Okay. Let's add that sucker. Boom. TreysBookClub.com is something I'm really excited about. And so you guys can go check that out. I'm going to, in theory, actually start adding a lot to the book club. Starting out with a 30-day challenge. 2 books I think are really helpful. One of them being Atomic Habits. You read that in 15 days. And then the next 15 days, you read Gentle and Lowly by Dane Ortland. I think it's a really good combo punch. So I want to talk about, again, here I am. Let's just roll with it. Comment where you guys are from, what you're listening to, where you're listening from, and that'd be great. So I'm going to kind of just go through some of the little list of what I've read and kind of show you my process behind taking notes. So this year, when I look down at the bottom, I have read 56 books. Now, when I first started telling everybody how many books I've read, my average was like, are my audio levels bad? Comment if my audio levels are bad. My average was about like 100. In fact, one year, was it 2019? I read 99 books, and then I read a Dr. Seuss book in my video to just say, hey, I've now read 100. What's up, Dave? Florida's in the house. So here's some of the books I've read. Now, here's the thing, year by year, if you look at just 1 year, maybe you can argue, Trey, you did too much of one direction, you did too much of this category. But I actually like keeping a list of all my books so I know that and go, okay, I did a lot of this, I'm missing that. And so then I really think through, okay, 2023, I need books about that because I did a lot of this. So this isn't a perfect list. I kind of stumble along the way. Sometimes I find a book because of a footnote. Other times I find a book because somebody posted about it on their Instagram story. I get a lot of books because of that. I actually don't follow a ton. I actually think this is still an empty space, maybe. I don't follow a ton of YouTubers that like have a recommendation of books they're reading and book reviews. I know I've been trying to do that a little bit, trying to find traction in that area. Mainly because I'm already reading, might as well make a video about the books that I enjoy. It's just been hard. Honestly, YouTube's just been a struggle to figure out. I've tried to adapt over the years. Really feel like my sweet spot was always the storytelling vlogs, but those always don't do too well anymore. So it's just weird to try to keep up with the trends, but also have fun doing it. And I don't think I always hit it. But I'm going to see, what this book club can do for you. And then hopefully, in return could be a blessing to me and my family. So let's talk about some of the books I read. I actually started the year with a lot of books about writing because I wrote a book. And so I was kind of all over the map. There's actually so many different ways I can organize this database on the books I've read. The way I had to organize all year was not by date started, but by date finished. So this is the first book I finished, the second, third, and so on. So some of these books I bought early and then didn't finish till late because either I put it down or whatever. So this is actually just really helpful for me to see, okay, here's the order. Okay, I'm on YouTube. Just go play outside. And good old Trinity. So yeah, no. Okay. So I'm actually going to I'm going to sort this, not by date finish, because now I don't need that anymore. But I'm going to sort it by rating. Come on. Rating is, filter. That's what I want to do. No. What am I? Y'all, I just did this earlier. I want to sort it. Yeah, sort it. Maybe I did filter the first time. Filter, there we go. Hey, I can't have you come in here anymore, okay? I'm doing a video. Go talk to your mother. So let's do this. So in 2022, I have these different rankings for books: life-changing, 5-star, 4-star, 3-star. I don't have it in me to give somebody 2 stars. Life-changing is, I've had a lot this year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 life-changing books. Now, sometimes I'm dramatic, to be honest. There's been books where I had it under life-changing. A couple months later, I come back and go, okay, that wasn't life-changing, but that was 5-star. I really enjoyed it. And so here's the 9 that I really enjoyed, and I just got to pop in here a little bit so you can see my note-taking process. I read 56 books this year. There was a year where I read 100, but I think this year I created a system to where I don't forget what I read. I created a system where I can come back to these books quickly in conversation. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was like, oh, this book, man, hold on. There's a line, there's a paragraph that just, I think is really helpful for what you are going through. And so I put them on speaker. I whipped open my phone. I went to Notion and I found the book and I read the paragraph, and it really helped the conversation. What I'm really grateful for is I've really learned in preaching that it's okay to quote people. It's okay. I think it has this quality of inspiring people to read. Instead of just telling people, hey, I read all the time, show them that I read by sharing quotes. I think it often adds to the message. Now, I do know that sometimes you can quote that too much, and I totally get that. But a huge reason why I read so much is so I can share what I'm learning with other people. And I thankfully have a good enough memory where I can go, hey, N.T. Wright had that thing about that thing. Let me go to that book. I guess some people, they don't even remember where they read it or who the author was. So you do need some memory skills a little bit, but this helps refine it a lot. So by no particular order, here's the 9 books that were life-changing, and maybe this can be your first 9 books that you read in the new year. So the first one, again, not in a particular order, is Lead Like It Matters. I tend to stay away from leadership books that, I don't know, I just tend to stay away from leadership books because I think often they just say the same thing over and over. A lot of it is just kind of obvious. It's just like, a lot of times as a leader, I know what's right. Sometimes I just don't have the courage to do what's right, or I don't have the awareness. And so those books are help with that, with okay, this worked for this guy, go ahead and do it. But Lead Like It Matters by Craig Rochelle, I thought was a really, really good book. It talked about there is, he has planted so many different locations. And what he found was interesting is they even have the same building plan for all their buildings. And so he's able to say look, we planted several different churches in the same area. Some of them popped off and some of them didn't. How come? What were the things that made some church, if their system was completely the same, what was it about that one location that did really well versus another that didn't do well? And so I thought that was really great to kind of learn from that. And so he kind of he calls it the it factor. That's why Lead Like It Matters. So the 7 ingredients were vision, focus, unmistakable camaraderie, innovative minds, willingness to fall short, heart-focused outward, and kingdom-mindedness. And so I thought that was really helpful. And so he goes through the book and gives those different elements and how to cultivate that. I wrote here so what I do on the top is I give my summary and thoughts of the book after I'm done. And apparently chapter 12 was my favorite and most essential for me to apply. And so now I can go over to the book and grab it and look at chapter 12 and kind of, talk about it and think through it again. Dave is now saying, let me fix this comment because of how I'm doing this. Adding the book table to our church this year. Oh, cool. Getting some good stuff before my people. I love doing that. It's one of my favorite things to do for our church. And we usually give it to them for free because I just love when people read. So anyways, yeah, I'm not going to go through this book exhaustively, but look, I like to put a comment here. So for some reason I said make a system for every practice series. They mentioned there's 7 steps for every new series. So this was an idea I had. So the system I have is when I put a comment, it's like a note to myself saying, hey, here's how I'm going to apply this specific quote, this specific thing. So Lead Like It Matters is really good, especially if you're looking for some motivation in the leadership realm. Now, Surprised by Hope, I thought was incredible by N.T. Wright. It was so good that I organized all the quotes by chapter. I don't always do this for books, but I thought this was such a rich book. I also find it interesting for me to go, okay, I read this in exactly 2 weeks, and it was 295 pages, blah, blah, blah. And so even I have a comment here. This can be a great way to preach Easter this year. Oh, cool. So let me go here and look in my summary. In chapter 5, Wright argues we look to 2 hopes that radically fall short. One is the myth of progress that has no real answer for evil. The other is a Platonic view of the self and a dismissal of the material world as the ultimate problem. Beautiful, right? So that's my summary. So when I say that, he didn't write that down. This is just me afterwards. But then the way I do it is I don't put it in quotes because I know I'm already quoting them. These are all lines from that chapter, and I put the page number. When I wrote my own book, I quickly learned that I have to save not only quotes, but where I got the quotes and the page numbers. One of the most difficult things is I had a few, like 5 amazing, fantastic quotes for my Non-Anxious Pastor book, and I had no idea where to find them. And some of them I would Google the quote because I have it saved somewhere, right? So I just copied and pasted, and it was like, I don't know where you found this. We don't think this is a real quote. So I had to go through like hours of remembering, going through all of his books or her books and finally finding where the quote was. And I thought to myself, I will never do this again. I'm going to take notes on the front end in such a way that if I ever have to quote something, I'll know exactly where it's at and how to properly reference them. In fact, I do it in my sermons now. I footnote. I do like a proper footnote. If I'm quoting somebody, especially from a book, I properly say then just the author's name, the book, and then the page number, because I will thank myself down the road when I look back. So anyways, I thought this was a really good book just about the resurrection. No, there's a lot of opinions about N.T. Wright, and I know that he does some things on the New Perspective of Paul and all this stuff. Where I think N.T. Wright is best is looking at the historical event of the resurrection. And so I would just strongly urge everyone to read this book, Surprised by Hope. I have interacted with a few other N.T. Wright things. This has been my favorite by far. I love how he makes us rethink the kingdom. I love just the proof of the resurrection, and it's really, really good. So check out that book, Surprised by Hope. It is on the life-changing list, which means I most likely will consider reading it again this next year. Now, equally with that, I just had the Easter theme going for a while. Hope in a Time of Fear by Tim Keller is just as powerful, and you can tell I read it around the same time. This was me prepping for Easter last year. It is about the resurrection as well. And because I enjoyed it so much, I did it all by chapter. Because look how many quotes I have from this. Now, everything is important. When I bold, it's like pretty important. And then when I highlight, it's the most important, thinking I'm going to quote it in another sermon or book or whatever. And you can see there's a lot of highlights in this section. And this means I wrote a note. Okay. All sorts of things. Cool. So, by the way, Option Command T opens and closes all of them. The system I use is read, underline, go back over the chapter, read underlines, write, or take photo of underlines, add to OneNote. So yeah, I have a whole system as well that I'm pretty proud of. It took a long time to figure out. In fact, I've been putting together a resource where I'm considering sharing not just my 2022 books read, but just the books I've been reading and all the ones I have notes on. And so this year, of these 56 books, I took a lot of extensive notes, and they're all really good. But a lot of last year's books I love, I just didn't take good notes on them. And so I've been going back this week, kind of adding to this huge database of my favorite books, and again, considering adding it to the book club. And I'm really mad at myself because the way I read last year and especially the year before, I did not have the right note-taking system. I didn't dog ear any pages. I wouldn't put like, hey, like I would underline a ton, but I wouldn't put like, hey, no, you need this, like put this somewhere. So I just have different categories. Some things are highlighted just when I go back to the book, I remember the argument. Other things are highlighted if this is a physical book with the Q on the side saying, no, this needs to be put into Notion. And so there's different levels. So even the notes I take on here on Notion, there's a different level to it where some of them you don't see, but if you go to my actual book, there's a lot more underlines. Now, the next book is life-changing, is my own, because it changed my life. Like writing the book was really, really helpful for me. So because of that, what's so weird? I don't get it. There's something about the way I talk on live. Immediately my voice hurts. If anybody knows the science of this, I would love it because I don't struggle with this in my sermons. It's like something about here right now, the way I use my voice, it's so strange to me. I don't get it. So I actually went through this the other day. I read my book because, again, I'm thinking about making this a resource available to my book club or some sort of group of people. And so I just, scanned through my book, remembered, oh yeah, this was a good line. Let me paste it. And so I was really pumped again about my book. I thought, you know what? It's not bad. I really enjoy that I did that. And so I put some of my favorite quotes, feedback that people have given me. And so that's of the non-anxious pastor, split into 3 sections: our predicament, our identity, and our formation. Really experienced a lot of condemnation because a lot of people have said identity and formation were just like so good. And then by way of saying that, some say, predicament was not what I expected. And I think that's the thing is when you are expecting a book on anxiety, you don't expect the author to immediately just talk about political issues, the gospel, this, that, the other. I try to go really high level, just theology in the first section. And none of it was original, which is kind of the point. But then identity and formation is a whole lot more practical, and I think it's a whole lot more unique. I bring perspectives that aren't super common, and I think that's why people point out those sections. But when I read it again, I thought, section 1's good. Everybody can just get over themselves. All right, now, the next one, I read this one again. I think this is maybe the 3rd or 4th time I've read The Great Omission, but this is another life-changing book for me. I read this for the first time in college, and I didn't know what I was reading back then. I wasn't that impressed, and I came back about 2018, I read it again, and I was like, oh my gosh, now that I've done ministry for a while, now that I've been walking this Christian life even longer, I really, really need this book, and I need to apply the principles. So some of my notes about it is this is his most accessible read. The Great Omission essentially means we make converts but not disciples. That's a problem. And then he lays out a pathway to make apprentices of Jesus, and it starts with us. So this is pretty simple. I don't have too many quotes here. And so sometimes I just go crazy, and there's 150 underlines and quotes that I put in a book. Other times it's like, no, this is all I needed, but they're all amazing, top quality quotes. The next book on the life-changing list was John Mark Comer's Live No Lies. It was really a good book. I even created a PDF based off the example that he gave at the end of his book, and I used it as a handout for our church. It's a monastic handbook for fighting demons, which is so cool. So he split up his book into those 3 parts: the devil, the flesh, and the world, and so I took notes accordingly. Again, I find it just really helpful to take these notes, to quote them later. Another book that I thought, man, I need to make a video on this. I wish every pastor that I knew would read this book. Now, I'm worried that it wouldn't be received or that people will be overwhelmed trying to apply it, but wow. This book was so good. Jim Wilder is I believe he's a neuroscientist, so he studies the brain. And then Michael Hendricks is just like a preacher theology dude that helps kind of interpret his findings for the everyday pastor, because it can get really heady, pun intended. But I loved his 4 nutrients to a healthy soil in a church. It was so convicting for me. This right here, man. I mean, this is the point. This is why you should read this book. And I'm even like almost tearing up thinking about it right now. Golly, it was so good. So he believes in a healthy church environment, we need to cultivate in our soil joy. And he gives a whole chapter. How do we do that? What's the purpose of that? Blah, blah, blah. Hesed, which is actually what I have as a tattoo right here, and I think in part was inspired because of this book. Hesed is the faithful, steadfast loyalty, love of God. And that chapter alone is so good. He gives this argument that the Greek did not have a word about love in the way that the Hebrews did. Hesed was the love of God. And so what Paul did in 1 Corinthians 13 is he took a Greek concept, agape, which always meant, sacrificial love. But he argues, 1 Corinthians 13, he goes line by line saying, okay, now this agape is like hesed. Let me kind of change the definition of agape. So in other words, hesed is patient, hesed is kind. Hesed is, love is this, love is that. The Hebrew concept of that was always there, embedded throughout the Old Testament. And so we had to find a Greek word. And so, anyways, the love of God. So good there. Group identity. Not that you're a cult, but man, there has to be some just short of cult level, you love each other and there's just unique things about you. And then healthy correction. His whole chapter on that was so good about shame and how shame is a gift when used properly. And that chapter was the hardest for me to think through as a leader. How do I apply healthy correction? And then he says, if you miss out, our brains, our bodies, we need joy, hesed, group identity, and healthy correction. And it really taps into the other side of the brain that usually we don't really tap into. It really requires practice. It requires body movement. It's much more than just cerebral. Without those four, narcissism inevitably grows up and destroys a church. His chapter on narcissism was shocking. It was convicting. It was so good. 2 types of shame, toxic and healthy. I love this paragraph here to explain the difference. I'm actually surprised because lately I've been doing way more quotes than this, but again, this is a lot. Maybe, to somebody who's never seen my other stuff before, this seems like enough quotes. It is. The point, of course, is if, you don't want to do too many quotes, you got to read the stinking book, but these are just reminders and things that I want to bring up and quote later on. But man, the narcissism chapter is insane and it's so good. And I think, we have so many people out there talking about the narcissism in the church and, I'm just really grateful I'm on a path where, how do I say this? I love that there's people out there calling out the narcissism, but I want to be a part of the crew that is finding a way to create a church culture to where that's not acceptable. And, like a positive solution versus just like, look how smart we are. We're pointing out the obvious. Now, I think there's a purpose for that, and I'm glad because it can't be swept under the rug or else narcissism gets even worse. But anyways, other half of church was great. Strange New World, phenomenal. One of those books, again, where I organized everything by chapter because, goodness gracious, it was so good. And so, actually, I read his other book the year before, which was the modern triumph of the triumph of the modern self. There it is, Trey. The rise and triumph of the modern self. And this is a condensed version, way easier to understand. But man, the way his arguments are listed, I read this on the Kindle, I can tell because of the location. Readwise was the thing that spit all this out for me. And I'm really grateful for Readwise. I just made a video about that on my channel that I released yesterday. Anyways, this book is the gift that keeps on giving when it comes to sermon illustrations and understanding the crowd I'm talking to and just thinking through how to be a faithful Christian. This also took me about 2 weeks. So we see a theme here, guys. The next one that was the last one of life-changing. Man. This was really, really good. Still Time to Care. I have it under the category of secularism. I try not to make too many categories. I probably would actually change the genre to sexuality, but I just wanted to clump more of my books together. And so anyways, this one took me about a week. I couldn't put it down. Looks like it was about 10 days. The title of the book was based off of a Henry Nouwen quote. Henry Nouwen had said, instead of trying to cure people, it's our job to care for people. It's the Holy Spirit's job to cure, and really, really good. But it actually takes a history lesson on how the church has dealt with the issue of homosexuality. Guys, it's so weird that I cough like this. I can't ever go live. How am I talking different? Okay. So what I was really shocked about is it talks about people like Billy Graham, Francis Schaeffer, C.S. Lewis, John Stott. I mean, these guys are just the cream of the crop. And the way they dealt with the issue, the battle, the struggle of homosexuality is dramatically different than how our culture deals with it today in the church. And it was just really convicting, really helpful. As you can see, sometimes I need to fix this. I just take pictures and then copy and paste onto here. So sometimes the words aren't perfect. But like even here, what is this paradigm of care? We don't control people. It's not about fixing them, not disgust, not excluding your fellow believers, not avoiding, not blaming, but also not compromising a biblical vision for sex. Instead, feeling empathy towards sexual minorities, defend gay people when they're under attack. Billy Graham did that to a president. Make the radical grace of the gospel central in everything. Commend gay people who follow Jesus. And that was a really hard thing to understand. Like, okay, what does this mean? And so he even talks about some people, like him, this author, he would consider himself a side B. Maybe the side, see, even here, I'm trying to get the language right. It's somewhere down here. A side B means they have homosexual desires, but they're not acting on it. They are pledging celibacy. I have right here, best page of the entire book, really long. I literally just copied the entire page because it was so good. But this was just really convicting. More and more, we're going to have to find a way to talk about this topic in a way that is both full of grace and full of truth. And I think this book was a wonderful step in that direction for me. And I was convicted. I was so excited about what I learned from this book. I considered the possibility of quickly putting together a series on sexuality for our church. And I realized this is one of those topics where I'm going to need to read this again. I'm going to have to talk to some people. I'm going to need to, let this topic saturate my soul, because it's not been an issue for me personally. And so I have to kind of step into people's shoes who've gone through this and, again, just be able to figure out how do I preach this with, again, full of grace, full of truth? And some topics, I will never say I'm an expert on anything, but on a topic like this, you can't just read a book one week and preach on it the next. This is one of those topics. You got to let it really breathe. You got to let it enter into your system for a while. But I'm excited to come back to this book, to read the books that this book offered, as footnotes. It's incredible to see what a lot of these thinkers back in the 40s and 50s were saying, and how the 70s just completely changed the way that we address the topic. And it did a lot of damage to the church and did a lot of damage to people. And so I think possibly one of my favorite parts of this book was there's just a beautiful section on the gospel. It was really, really good. And I just thought it was really powerful. Here's the Henry Nouwen quote. He says, "Care is being with, crying out with, suffering with, feeling with. Care is compassion. It is claiming the truth that the other person is my brother or sister, human, vulnerable like I am. Often we are not able to cure," he insisted, "but we are always able to care." And I have felt that in ministry. I've wanted to be the person that just fixes everything for people. And man, if you just recite this liturgy, everything will be fixed in your life. And, by the grace of God, sometimes it happens and it's so cool. But man, other times it doesn't. And so for some reason, that's the way it is. And we don't share those stories enough. We don't share the stories of people just always struggling. We love to share the story of the people who, man, I had this desire, came to church, walked the aisle, and I never had that desire again. And what a grace. And we should share those stories. That's incredible. But I think more than not, and I write about this in my book, there is a grace in the journey of struggle, to learn how grace applies to you every day. And it's a fight just to stay intimate with the Lord and realizing all these desires are pointing to the deepest desires of being cared for by Jesus himself. And so even just as a side note, this was a fascinating thing. He talks about the illusory truth effect, is the scientifically observed tendency to believe things to be true on account of repetition. So the illusory truth effect, and some of the stuff I believed, let me know in the comments if you ever believe these things. Apparently some of this isn't right. It explains why people think we only use 10% of our brain. I thought that, right? Or that native Alaskans have 100 words for snow. I've never heard that one, but that's funny. Or that Einstein failed math. Never heard that one either. Or that you can see the Great Wall of China from space. I thought you could. That's not true. I said it the other day. Or that if you touch a baby bird, its mother will reject it. I don't know if I've never heard that one. Or that Iron Maidens were an actual torture device. Or that Napoleon was short. Is he not short? Was Napoleon short? He was probably of average height. What? I thought he was short. Or that it takes 7 years to digest chewing gum. My mom told me that one all the time. Apparently not true. Or that you can't eat and swim. I've never tried. It looks like I skipped one. Yeah. Or that Benjamin Franklin wanted the turkey to represent America. Totally thought that. Or that there were 3 magi. I know why that's there, because of the 3 gifts. None of these facts are true. We just believe they are because we've heard them so frequently. So actually, he says that in the topic of homosexuality in the church, a lot of the things we say, we just say it because we've heard it so often, so we think it's true. Really good book. So Anthony just wants to steal my Notion pages. Well, here's the thing. I'm deeply, deeply, deeply considering it as a feature, one of the products in the Trey's book club. Thinking about it. Actually, I'm thinking about it. So those were all the life-changing books that I read this year. Then I read a lot of 5-star books, a lot of really good things, a lot of 4-star, which 4-star is not bad. 4-star is like, it's great. I mean, like even right here, Renovation of the Church, that was a great book, Trey. Why'd you put it 4-star? Because not everything can be 5. Because I lean towards like, oh man, this is 5. And I'm like, if I do everything 5, then it's not actually 5 anymore, right? Like The Flourishing Pastor was really good, but it's concepts that I was wrestling with in my own book, and I've read a bunch of books on spiritual formation, so I didn't learn anything new, so I thought, okay, this is 4-star. But for some people, it'll be 5-star because it's brand new to them, but it's not brand new to me, so 4-star. How to Hear God by Pete Greig, great book, great. It actually informed one of my sermon series, 4-star. I don't know why I did this. Embracing Rhythms of Work and Rest was Ruth Haley Barton, 4-star. I don't know why. I'm here like wanting to change all these to 5 stars even right now. But anyways, some really great books here. And I don't know why that's extra highlighted. I'll have to fix that later. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Oh, look at the super chat. Bro, excited for you to hit 1K. Maybe you've hit it already. I'm not sure, but excited what you're doing on YouTube, man. So here I have 56 books. Let me show you what I'm working on to give as a resource to everybody in the book club. Hold on. Some of this stuff is like really private, so I don't want you to see it. Okay, here it is. Trey's book notes. I simplified it to where you won't see the start and end date because that doesn't matter to you. And I do have this one organized by life-changing. I also thought about sorting it not by rating, but instead by genre. Just so you can go, okay, here's the leadership books I've read. Here's theology, which I think is way more. I got to figure out. I think there's quite a few books that are formation and theology. I just had to pick one or the other. As you can tell, I've done a lot of formation books. Bible, that's like, I do a lot of commentaries, which I never put in here. That's just like too much. I have limits, but these are books that were about certain books of the Bible that I found really helpful. And then productivity, which I'm surprised is that few. Again, I think some of that stuff's in formation. I love books on secularism, just to kind of learn about our current moment. That's what I mean by secularism. I know it's an often overused word. I'm so sorry. Biographies have been really helpful. I might take this off because Will was just an Audible book for me, so there's no notes. So if I give this out, I think I'm just going to remove Will. Sorry, Will. Although it was a really good memoir. And then Curating, some books I read on how to write, how to create, some really, really good things. Like, for example, this book right here, The 22 Laws of Digital Writing, I thought was kind of underwhelming. But then I looked back and thought, well, actually, there's a lot of like really good one-liners that are really helpful for me. Like here, this is for every YouTuber. Conventional wisdom says you should write for the biggest audience possible, but this is terrible advice. Instead, you should write for the most specific audience possible. Right now, I'm making a video for people who are nerds, who love Jesus and love books. Any fiction make your list? Well, here's the thing too. On this list specifically, there's nothing to me. There's nothing to like quote or write down. I know that's technically not true, right? Like there's some Lord of the Rings lines that are like incredible. There are about 3 books I read this year that were fiction that I actually listened to because it's just Audible. I made myself do it because I just can't believe that I can't do it. So I should add that on here. I just finished Fellowship of the Ring. And I just started The Two Towers, which I'm really enjoying a lot. I got really into Lord of the Rings the last couple months. But yeah, fiction, that's my downfall. That's why I tell people I actually don't like reading. Because if I liked reading, I would read fiction. But when I read fiction, I am bored out of my mind. I am confused. I get distracted. It's all the excuses everyone tells me about why they don't read the books that I read. There's nonfiction. I just love to learn. I love those gold nuggets. Like, you never heard this before, but I'm about to teach you about like that kind of stuff. I get so excited about. And so that's why I'm obsessed with reading. I just love learning history. I love learning current thought. Man, all that stuff is so good. I love to make my life better. Cal Newport was someone I've really enjoyed. His book, Deep Work, was really good. So here's what was exciting too. Deep Work, I have it as a physical copy. And so I was about to like do all of this work of, taking all the quotes and putting it on my Notion. But this guy, Osmosis, I follow his newsletter, although his newsletters are large, and I think I just unsubscribed because there's so much. But he has a few book summaries on his website, and his summary on Deep Work was so good, I just took the time to give him credit, by the way, right there, but copy and paste onto my Notion document and toggle it so that I can just come back to it later. And so, yeah, premise, what is deep work? The 3 benefits of deep work. Boom. 1, 2, 3. It helps you learn to get better at skills faster. It's more valuable, and it feeds your soul. What are the 3 biggest takeaways for him, which I thought for me too? Shallow work erodes your ability to do deep work. Tracking lead measures is better than lag measures, and deep work is hard and forces you to plan. So this stuff, it was really good. And so I just saved it all. You want to know something else, guys? I'm sharing the stuff right now. And again, I'm thinking about making this a product on the book club. I actually think I think it would be a lot of value. When I wrote, I started to collect. Here it is, guys. I'm a curator as much as I am a creator. In fact, I would not be a creator if it weren't for my curating. So here's my curation of all things writing tips. So this is stuff I found online. And so it's like 41 sentence writing tips. Boom. And it's by this guy, I believe, Josh Spector. So I click on this and it takes to links. So I properly quote people, but I take the stuff on the website and I just paste it all into here, make it look prettier. Let me read a couple of these. They're so good. 75% of writing isn't writing. It's thinking, editing, and publishing. Twitter is a gym for writers. I've always had a hard time writing tweets. It scares me. Authenticity is as important as creativity. Write like no one's listening and everyone needs to. Throw in the occasional one-word paragraph. I mean, just good advice, right? Here, I highlighted this one. Julian Shapiro, this dude is a genius. Y'all, he's a genius. And again, I'm thinking about making this is its own category. If you guys want to get access to my notion of all the writing tips, I need comments. And let me know if this is of interest to you. But I have a bunch of these. So this helped write my book. Outline your ideas. Oh, y'all, this is actually, I think. No, never mind. I made a video recently about how I summarize my sermons. I think it's in one of these is where I got the inspiration from. State that the reader's current view of the world is false. Establish how so many people being wrong about this hurts our world. And then establish what's required to get everyone to change their views. And then predict how the world would be different once the transition is complete, and explore the exciting byproducts of the world being different. Guys, that's like a really good, well thought out sermon message talk. You know? I mean, look at all this, guys. Look at this stuff I have. How do I overcome blockers? This helped me in my book. De-emphasize originality. Your goal should be running a good process at a high frequency. What people really want is something that just resonates. You change their lives by making material so captivating, clear, and actionable that for the first time ever, they pay attention to a topic or an idea they had always ignored. And lean into making bad work. Take comfort in knowing that when you discard bad work via a good process, the work was not for nothing. It was to improve the process. In other words, write it down. It's okay. You have to delete it later. I think another one of these, Josh Spector, has the tip on always removing 10% of your work. So I did that when I wrote my chapters. I would go, okay, I need to take away 10%. So I look at, okay, there's 3,200 words. I need to take at least, 320 words off. And it was helpful. It was really helpful. Now, let me share this. I think it's just really fascinating. Is Malcolm Gladwell. He has a master class, literally on masterclass that I read. And there was a few things here that I thought was really helpful. This one right here, the difference between a meal and a treat. See, this stuff I love. I love that, I can remember, Malcolm Gladwell says something really brilliant about a meal and a treat, but I'm stuck there. I go to my notion, bada bing, bada boom, bada this, bada that. He says, my task as a writer is to give you something to think about. That's the meat. And then something to talk about. That's the candy. So candy is great as long as you have the main meal. When you share about a movie, you don't summarize the whole movie. You just remember one scene that stuck out, the candy, and it's the reason you should watch the rest. For example, Mandalorian, the candy was Baby Yoda, right? Everyone was talking about it. So a lot of people went to watch Mando because of the Baby Yoda, but thankfully it had a really good story, so it kept you there. But when you explain to somebody, hey, watch The Mandalorian, you don't share the history of Mandalorian and his journey as a character. You just say, Baby Yoda's in it, man. And so in your books, you should have, the candy. So all this was really good. Anyways, I have a lot of resources like this. What else do I have? I even have business tips. And then I have a thing called content creation. And so anyways, those are my book notes. I'm really grateful for. If there's no questions, maybe I'll land this plane. But there's actually 2 books I read this year that were so bad that I didn't put it on this list. I just even on my 2022 books read, I just deleted it. So I don't even give myself credit. So I said I've read 55 books this year. I technically have read 57, but the other 2 were so bad. And I finished him, though. That's what I'm ashamed of. Don't be afraid to not finish a book. Do not be afraid just to say, you know what, this ain't working. We got to move on. Now, that's a good question. Let's see what my 2023 reading list looks like. So far, these are the books I have that I've started to read, but I haven't finished. Why God Makes Sense. So, sorry, I'll put up the comment. What's up, Matt? Me and Matt had a good chat the other day. So Why God Makes Sense in a World That Doesn't by Gavin Ortlund. I know it's good. Man, it's long. Like chapter 1 is like 59 pages. So I just haven't been inspired to finish. The Care of Souls, you think I'd really like it. Just got a text from somebody I really appreciate. Sorry. The Care of Souls, I just haven't been able to finish it either for some reason. Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet-David. I saw him at a conference recently and I thought about reading it and I read the first couple chapters and I was not inspired. But I have people that I really respect say it's a good book, so I'm keeping it on the list. I am walking through N.T. Wright's Galatians commentary, which is really, really good. I'm almost done, but I'm not technically done. So now it's booted into the 2023. Sabbath as Resistance. That's funny. I just finished that, though. I'm going to have to remove this. I think I actually put it back into the 2022. I just forgot to delete it here. That was only 150 pages. But yeah, I read it, and it was good. It was really good. Actually, Matt, I think I read it because of you. I think you're the one who recommended it on your website. And then Disordered. I follow this guy, Paul Antlander. He has a really good podcast. I think it's called Deep Talks. And so I follow him. I support him on Patreon, and he wrote a book called Disordered about suffering. And it's a really good book. I'm very much enjoying it. I just haven't been able to finish it. And so those are the books there. I'm trying to think through what are some books coming ahead in the future. I'm trying my best to do a lot of just like an eclectic. One book I haven't finished reading, but I started a while ago. Oh man, my filter makes this white book look terrible. It's called The Originals by Adam Grant, How Nonconformists Move the World. What I like about it is just really good illustrations, just some stories about people doing some original things. And it's not life-changing, but I always like these kind of things for my hooks and my messages or just a way to think different. So, yeah, Adam Grant, I've heard a lot of people mention it. Right now, probably doesn't count, but I'm reading Robert Alter's commentary on the books of Moses. So we are about to go through the life of Moses as a church. And so I've been reading Robert Alter's commentary on it. What else have I done? The book, The Cost of Control by Sharon Miller. I'm excited to get into that. I started it and then I didn't finish. So there's actually, I recognize that about myself. I did that a lot this last year. My biggest problem was I was trying to read too many books at once. I thought I can do that. And I can't. I can't do that. Let's go back to a better view. I can't do it. And so what I like to do is read one book, finish, and then order another one. And so I need to finish these books that I have lying around, and then I'm just going to go one by one. The Medieval Mind by C.S. Lewis. I love me some C.S. Lewis. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I don't think I have that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't plan ahead too much. I do want more books on theology. I do want more books on formation, and I do want more books on productivity. I always enjoy. Obviously, Bible commentaries I don't include on here, but I always do those. And I like the random leadership book. Those are the things I like to do. What's your budget for books? Like $3,000 a year? I'm really grateful. I have some people that gift me books, and they're good gifters, so they're like good books. Also, I have a church budget, and so I'm able to, I have like, a budget per month, but also it has to pertain to my preaching series. There has to be some sort of correlation between that, between buying a book and then how it benefits my church directly. So I'm really grateful for that. So that helps a ton. My wife does Kindle Unlimited. So she pays $10 a month, and she read 270, what did she say? 273 books this year? And it was just $10 a month. Everything was Kindle Unlimited. Hardly any theological book is in the unlimited section. So really bummed about that, or else I would totally hop on that train. I'm into Kindle again, which I made a video just about that because of Readwise. The Medieval Mind of C.S. Lewis basically transforms your understanding of the Chronicles of Narnia and the Ransom trilogy and completely changes the way you understand him. Okay, so is it not written by C.S. Lewis? It's about C.S. Lewis? That's even more fascinating to me. I would actually really like that. Now, I don't know what you guys think, but Patrick Lencioni. There's a lot of my friends who are like the Craig Rochelle crowd, like the deeply pragmatic crowd. Not bad at all. I love them. I'm not really like that. They love this book, and so I picked it up. I just can't get into his, what do you call them, like fables, his stories. I just am like, just tell me what I need to know. So I enjoyed the takeaways and the 6 different types of geniuses. I thought it was helpful, but I'm just not a guy who likes to read a bunch of stories. That goes back to my problem with fiction. I don't know. I have issues. Pray for me. How We Love was a really good book for our church. Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools. This, I actually put as a comment, this book grew on me more and more. This is the line that's like my theme for 2023. We are finally in a position to be dazzled or disappointed by God, but nothing in between. I love that. I think as a pastor, I need to get our church into that position. Okay, Dave says, it's more of a biography that looks at what books would have been on his nightstand. Interesting. I'm going to check that out. So anyways, guys, again, let me know your interest level of getting a copy of this Notion template. It wouldn't be a template. It would just be you having access to this, but not the ability to change it, because that would make me really sad. This is a lot of work. Atomic Habits, which is at treysbookclub.com right now. I can give you, it's about an average of 18 pages a day. It helps you finish the book in 15 days. And here's all my notes on it. In fact, when you go to treysbookclub.com and you grab a copy, in 15 days, you'll receive this Notion page, my notes on the Atomic Habits. One thing I really am thinking a lot about is this phrase right here. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. I love that. Like in church, people tend to talk in whispers. On a dark street, people act wary and guarded. In this way, the most common form of change is not internal, but external. We are changed by the world around us. Every habit is context dependent. I'm thinking about that as a pastor. We're moving into a new space in hopefully 6 weeks or so. It all depends on shipping and handling and all those sorts of things as we get new gear, but we're moving into a school. We're so excited. And I think one reason why we were just restricted is the environment we were in is another church. It was another church building. It was at a hard time. And so we were just bumping up against environmental things. No matter how I would try to change it, it just simply wouldn't change. So we're grateful. We just felt that invisible hand. And that's not an excuse, but I'm realizing as a leader, okay, we got ourselves to a certain point. It's such a gift in the season that we're in, but we gotta get to a better environment. And so we're praying just that God shows so much favor in this new place. But also as a leader, I'm thinking, how do I create this environment? It's like a blank slate right now. How do I, in the first few weeks, really set the tone for what this new environment will bring? I don't want to bring in some of the bad habits that we had at our current location. I want to get rid of those and offer something new. And so I've been praying through that, thinking through how do I lead that moment. Really tough. I had somebody text me the other day, Connor Harlos. He said, man, I'm reading a book about vision, and you have to do a vision statement, a mission statement, and a strategy, and this and that and the other. He goes, what happened to just preaching the Bible? And there's some groups who will say that's all you have to do is just preach the Bible. But, and that was me for a long time. And if you don't preach the Bible, nothing else works. But there is a wisdom to leading people in a really healthy way and helping shape environments. And it's hard. Pastoring is tough, man. You have to be like an expert in so many different areas. And one of them is environment shaping. And that's just been, oh, Connor's here. Nice. One of them has been, for us, man, how do I create a more welcoming environment? How do we're a bunch of we're in a Queen Creek area, so it's predominantly white anyways. Like, man, when we worship, like, can we just crank it up a notch? Like, in how we respond and interact. And so those kind of things, I'm bearing that burden. How do we engineer a new environment to this invisible hand, not restrict us, but to help us? And of course, we have the Holy Spirit for that, and really praying for God's favor. But anyways, we actually have a New Year's party to go to. Thank you guys for chilling. I have got to figure out, let me know why I can talk all day in front of people and not have the little tickly, but I go live and boom, I'm coughing the whole time. Why? Why does this happen? What am I doing with my voice? Is it possible? Why? I mean, I preach and I have no issue. I come up here, although I just got over a sickness, so maybe I'll give myself grace today, but seems to be this is always if I talk over 20 minutes on a YouTube live, it's over. I got to be drinking water the whole time. Anyways, let me know, guys, if you would like a copy of, if you'd be interested in the product of just like, taking this. I think it's valuable. I have one friend that thinks it's very valuable, another friend that says no. So the jury is still out. Grace and peace, y'all. Happy New Year.